Good afternoon and welcome to the final afternoon session for Georgia Forward. I'm Maura Parrish, Market President for Bank of America in Augusta, Georgia, and it's been great seeing all these good folks drive down I-20 through the pine trees from Augusta here to Atlanta for today. Please allow me to introduce our keynote speaker. Today we have the privilege to have Dr. Kirby Godsey, who has served for 27 years as president and CEO of Mercer University before being named Chancellor in 2006. Under his leadership, Mercer experienced significant growth in size and prominence, becoming one of the most comprehensive universities of its size in the nation. During Dr. Godsey's tenure, 7 of the university's 11 schools and colleges were added, and the successful merger of Georgia Baptist College of Nursing was completed. In April 2006, Mercer University Board of Trustees recognized Dr. Godsey as Chancellor and University Professor and named the historic admin building on the Macon campus in his honor. He is an active member of First Baptist Church of Christ in Macon, an accomplished author of several books, including his most recent book on the topic of religion and science, earning the recognition of the 2017 Georgia Author of the Year Award for the book titled The God Particle, God Talk in a Big Bang World. In addition to serving as Chancellor of Mercer, many other jobs, Dr. Godsey is chairman of the board of the Birch Communications in Atlanta, Myers McRae Executive Search and Consulting Firm in Macon, and serves as chairman of the board of trustees for Peyton Anderson Foundation and is a member of the board of directors of the Rome Chamber Music Festival in New York. Please join me in providing a warm welcome to Dr. Godsey.
Thank you, Maura, for that generous introduction. It was almost longer than my speech, but I appreciate the kind words. Well, you know, I was invited, no surprise, I was invited to this forum by Chris Hadaway Vaughn, who sits here and is obviously such an important leader in this organization. She asked me about 6 months ago to speak. And I said yes because it was unnecessary to say. If you said no, it just wouldn't hold, because Chris always gets her way. So I said I would do it. But if you'll allow just a moment, I want to say I've known this woman, Chris Hadaway. I knew her as now Chris Hadaway Vaughn. I see she's put Ben to work, but. I've known her for many years since she was a college-age student, and she's one of the most relentless and determined women I ever known. But I want to say that she's also among the most talented people with whom I have ever worked. She's bright. She's articulate. She is a superb planner, but more importantly, she is one who executes plans with attention to every detail. So I just want to say that Chris Hadaway Vaughn is a remarkable asset to any organization of which she's a part, and I know she's had so much to do with the Game Changers. And AJ, I support you, as I salute you for your wisdom and bringing her on board, and I salute her today as well, but thank you for inviting me. It is a pleasure being invited to do this as you're gathering to sort of be creating Georgia's best future. I like to think of you as a gathering of hope peddlers. I think hope is the best human instinct we have for solving problems. After all, the alternative is some form of despair, being caught up in the grips of doing nothing. Now, it is true that some problems seem intractable. Some obstacles seem insurmountable. Some prejudices seem too deep to overcome. Cynicism sometimes nips at our heels. We should remember this, however, that I believe that above all else, this Georgia Forum and Game Changers are about rekindling the flames of hope. Georgia Forward is rooted in the conviction that the way things are is not the way things have to be. Yet proclaiming Georgia Forward will not be enough. Today I'm here to remind us that if we want to move Georgia forward, we must be willing to live forward, to live toward new horizons, to live toward new ideas, to live toward changing the game, to live towards hearing and seeing new voices and faces and what they can imagine. Living forward does not mean that we should in any fashion diminish our history. The dramatic difference which this generation has made is rather impressive. We've come up with the internet, lithium batteries and solar farms. We've reconceived space travel and even talking about putting colonies on Mars. We put data in the cloud. We have decoded the human genome. We've come up with driverless cars and Donald Trump. The list is long. Looking back is a very important thing to do because history is the mooring out of which we create our future. Our history gives us a standing place for facing toward new horizons. And to those of you who are game changers or becoming game changers, your mission is always about probing the contours of these new horizons. And they differ with every community. But you're standing on towers of achievement that enable you to see farther. You have new eyes that enable you to see more clearly. Changing the game means taking a fresh look at where we are and the challenges that we face. It means being not weighted down by the way things have been. So look back with respect, but look forward with new expectations. Now, it is remarkable how so many of us spend so much time living in the past. My message is, look backward, but live forward. Celebrate our progress, but our lives do not belong to yesterday. Do not become preoccupied with some road not taken. Do not become shackled by yesterday's hurt feelings or bitter disappointments. Holding grudges, harboring resentments. Well, I have something to tell you. You will not live long enough to get even. Holding grudges is the ultimate waste of time. The answer is to let it go. Let go of the hurt. Let go of the disappointments. You and I, and especially the game changers, cannot live off of yesterday's successes, and we cannot be paralyzed by yesterday's failures. Life in the rearview mirror is an illusion. The way forward for Georgia Forward is to live forward. After all, we have some large problems to solve. For example, we live in a hyper-partisan world, a world where ideology often outruns common sense. Frankly, we will never again live in a world where the tough and knotty issues are either black or white. Almost every judgment we're called upon to make will be some shade of gray. Rigid partisanship paralyzes. Partisanship too often institutionalizes lazy thinking. It replaces rational thought with unthinking allegiance. Another example, our barbaric ancestry, from which we are still climbing out of, hinders our efforts to become civilized. Think about it. In the human race, we are still solving problems and resolving conflicts by killing one another. Well, Plato reminded us that civilization is the victory of persuasion over force. We're in a foot race. Today's weapons have become far more powerful, far more lethal. People are no longer fighting with clubs and spears, you know. So the question is whether we can become civilized in time before we destroy the entire human race. And the outcome is not clear. A third illustration, we're facing the convergence of the thinking machine and the human mind. In this century, not the next, we are developing artificial intelligence that is smart enough to power itself and to improve its own software, its own understanding, over and over again every hour, perhaps every few seconds. These thinking machines are learners, and they will quickly become smarter than humans. And this convergence can be a tremendous force for good or a challenge for the human future. Max Tegmark, a professor at MIT, observed this development could be wonderful or it could be pretty bad. We do have a few problems to solve. The increasingly widening divide between the haves and the have-nots in our society. Nuclear brinksmanship, global warming, rising seas, dangerously underfunded infrastructure, failing to understand the importance, for example, of the wisdom of rail, doubt in the integrity of our political systems, the growing financial challenges of state and local governments, elementary and secondary education that is between 12th and 15th among developed countries, while we spend more than any country. We're losing the war against drug addiction. Drugs are blind to class, and most people today are dying of more people today are dying of overdoses each year than were killed in the Vietnam and Iraq War combined. Incarceration alone is not working. Now, we don't have to look back to see these dilemmas. They're coming at us at lightning speed. These are stubborn problems. They will not yield to mantras or dogma. They will not yield to shoddy thinking or emotion-laden rhetoric. We cannot solve these problems by reciting old proverbs or offering stale remedies. The way forward must trust reason more than rhetoric. We cannot afford to define our lives or the lives of our communities by the way things have been. We must not get stuck in yesterday, and every community has that challenge. The issue is whether our communities can trust us to discern bold and creative and forward-looking solutions. And today I want to offer briefly 7 realities that I believe can help us regain trust and reclaim our capacity to make a difference. I call them 7 lessons for living forward. First is that we need to remember that people are more important than ideology. Every person matters. There are no unimportant people in our communities. People are more important than ideology. Now, I love ideas. I write whole books about ideas. But ideas alone are dead. They come to life in the mind and the will of people who believe in them. People who translate ideas into getting good things done. If we want to get anything done, we have to begin to take people seriously, the rich and the poor, the in crowd and the out crowd, the powerful and the powerless. Every person matters. The greatest evidence that somebody matters is that you listen to them. It's a very simple thing. But listening is the most basic form of respect. Someone asked me one time what the most important lesson I had learned in my years as president of Mercer. And I said, the most important lesson I learned is that more problems are solved by listening than by talking. When we're talking, we are not learning. When we're listening, we are learning. Every person counts. Living forward means learning to listen better. Second, I call it be careful what you die for. Someone has quoted me as saying, don't be crucified on a 6-inch cross. One of my favorite lines. Some people are sort of like Eric Hoffer's true believers. They're always ready to join a new parade, always ready to sign on to a new cause, always ready to make World War III out of every disagreement. True believers proclaim they're sticking to their principles. And my admonition is, have fewer principles. Generally, the problem is not that people have too few principles, they have too many. Solving problems that plague us requires making compromises. Know what it is for which you will go to the wire and negotiate all the rest, because most steps forward will be made through systematic and prudent compromise. We don't have all the answers. We have to keep learning. Open minds lead to better outcomes. Georgia Forward will require listening to another point of view and then being willing to compromise. The third strategy for living forward is to be there. The power of actually being present. Be there when you're popular and the winds of popular loud are blowing at your back. Be there when the gale force winds are blowing against you, when the tide is coming in and when the tide is rushing out, threatening to erode all your gains. Well, I want to say that being there means realizing that you and I live between what I like to call the not yet and the no longer. I mean, there was a time in which you were not yet in your position. Not yet you were the leader of your organization. Not yet the president. Not yet a game changer. Not yet in your place of responsibility. And there will be a time when you're no longer there. That's where we live. We live between the not yet and the no longer. That's where we live. And our lives are bounded by that not yet and no longer, and in that fleeting frame of influence. What matters will be this: what value did I add? What problems did I solve? What difference did I make? Living forward requires that you be present, because Georgia Forward needs your voice. The game changers need your ideas, needs your energy, needs your personality, needs your judgment. If you're absent from the conversation, you cannot make a difference. Be there. I want to be clear about number 4. Georgia Forward is not about making yourself more powerful. It is about making the people around you more powerful. Too often we become consumed with gaining power and influence, even though we want to use it for constructive purposes. It is a mistake. The secret sauce of Georgia Forward will be to make other people more powerful. In our towns and cities, we have large segments of people who feel left out. They feel powerless. They withdraw. So our overarching challenge is to empower people. Empowered people are an asset. Withdrawn people are a liability. The future lies in lifting people up. It lies in setting them free. The way forward is not in taking control. It is about capturing the thoughts and the energy and the creativity of people who often feel left out. So my 4th word is this: Georgia Forward should never be about gaining power. It is about giving power. My 5th word is critical. It is a matter of understanding that's the business of the future to be uncertain. I like to say that you and I are romancing the unknown. We're facing unexpected setbacks, unanticipated challenges. Now, the truth is that when we gather like this, we don't come together with a large duffel bag of clarity and answers and certainty. More likely, we come with small satchels of hope and hunches. There's no risk-free pathway to progress. The most important resources that we have with coping with an uncertain world will be in the combination of courage and imagination. It takes courage to consider fresh ideas. It takes courage to open your mind. It takes courage to innovate. It takes courage to question the established way of doing things. It takes courage to break down old barriers and to push back outdated boundaries. If we move Georgia forward, we have to embrace the courage factor. Alongside courage, we need to add the power of imagination. Before we can get to a new place, we have to imagine being in a new place. Albert Einstein once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." We have to imagine a different path to progress. We have to imagine a different outcome. We have to imagine a better way. Imagination keeps us from being trapped by the way things have been and trapped by answers and solutions that no longer work. The success of Georgia Forward will include embracing both courage and imagination. Now, 6, is a practical observation, and I've created an acronym for it. Just made it up. The word is peace. P-A-C-E. You have to learn to pace yourself. By P, I mean priorities. Know your priorities. You cannot fix every problem. You cannot address every issue. You cannot overcome every prejudice. It is better to help one person than to pontificate about helping everybody. I'm reminded of Charlie Brown, who said, "I love humanity. It's people I hate." It is better to feed somebody who is hungry than to feed the hungry. It is better to take care of somebody than it is to take care of everybody. If you want to be a voice for change, you've got to find yourself a common center. I call it having a sense of autonomy. You have to believe in yourself. You have to value your ideas. You have to speak from an inner core. By C, I mean collaborate. Achievements will rarely be made alone. Link up, connect. None of us knows enough to go it alone. If you want to make a difference that endures, you must be willing to collaborate, because changing the game will always mean building new alliances. And E means energy. Making a difference is hard work. Success is rarely cheap. It means working when others have grown weary. It means working on a problem in the community when others have given up. So learn to pace yourself. Know your priorities. Know and believe in yourself. Connect with others. And be prepared to work late when others are having a beer. Finally, I come to the most important lesson I have to offer to those of you who are invested in Georgia Forward. So far, I've offered 6 lessons for regaining trust and making a difference. They are: everybody counts, better to learn to listen better. Most steps forward will be made through systematic and prudent compromise. Third, between the not yet and the no longer, being there is the only way to make a difference. Fourth is empower others, because they will solve problems for you. Fifth is to engage an uncertain world with courage and imagination. And sixth was to pace yourself, know your priorities, know yourself, connect, and work hard. For me, however, this 7th word is the most important word I will speak this afternoon. I call it the power of one. The greatest, the most earth-changing gift that each of us possesses is the power of one. You see, each individual turns out to be a universe of one. You are one of a kind. Never before in all of history, and never again in the future of history, will there be someone with your constellation of talents and with your eyes to see. There's never been a person like you. Never has been, never will be. No hyperbole here. Every one of you is a unique, unduplicated gift to history. You are a burst of light that has never been seen before. And unless you live out your presence, that presence will simply go dark. It will be an empty place in our history, because no one can be what you can be or do what you can do. Underscore this truth. No one can see what you can see or hear what you can hear or say what you can say. No one can think what you can think or imagine what you can imagine. No one can dream what you can dream or be the voice that you can become. You have the power of one to step up and to speak out. You have the power of one to challenge old ways. You have the power to show us a new way. You have the power to speak truth to power. You have the power to lift somebody up who feels beaten down. You have the power of one to ignite a fire. You have the power to inspire. If Georgia Forward moves forward, we have to claim the power of one. Because no one has ever spoken, never, no one has ever spoken with your voice. No one has ever acted with your courage. No one has ever seen with your eyes. The power of one is the ultimate reality that defines for you and me, for each of us here, defines for all of us what on earth we are doing here. You have light to bring that has never been seen. You have stories to tell that have never been heard. You have encouragement to offer that has never been experienced. You can encourage someone who has given up. You can be a persuasive voice against intolerance. You can foster hope within someone who is utterly hopeless. And unless you live out your promise, unless you embody your integrity, unless you act upon your ability to change somebody's mind, unless you exploit your dreams, those dreams will never come true. So let this truth resonate within you. Tack it on your doorstep. Paste it on your mirror. Put it on a dog tag and wear it around your neck. Somehow sear it into your soul. You have the power to be what no one has ever been. You have the power to do what no one has ever done. You have the power of one. Thank you very much.